Hello, and welcome to the show Goldsquadrongays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays break down each episode of their favorite Star Wars TV shows while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and I do not have a luau happening behind me. So my sound gets to remain fine, except for the fan I have to have on the background to cover up the noise of my neighbor.
We can't all be perfect, Charles, okay?
It's true. Let's talk about some Star Wars. I've been staring at the CNN election counter way too much over the last couple of days. I need something light and not politics, and no political messaging at all to distract me from this.
Minus the actual political show that we're
I was
watching.
gonna say, so anyway, Andor. Before we get into Andor, though, we have a couple of quick things. Firstly, this is not necessarily a thing Charles fucked up. It's a thing Charles missed and was too good for him not to point out. So in the last episode, there's a shot right at the end of the Deidre and Bix scene where the door closes and the camera pans down to a set of boots walking and then pans back up. That is an exact shot mirror of a shot from A New Hope. Like, shot almost like a shot minute second by second like redo of that shot. I was obligated to point that out. Anyway, let's talk about the Acolyte.
Oh my god, I was not expecting a fucking cast drop of the Acolyte to this
Cast
weekend.
drop, plot drop. It's started I think has it been shooting for a while, I think. But they officially announced the plot and the cast. Some of them we already knew. Amanda Stenberg we already knew. Lee Jung-jae we already knew. I forgot Manny Jacinto was in this.
Oh yeah, I totally forgot until I saw his face and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot.
I saw his face, I was like, who is that absurdly pretty man? Oh, it's Manny Jacinto. I forgot he was in this. And I think we also knew Charlie Barnett was going to be in it. I think we'd heard that a while back.
Yeah, I think we might have discussed that a long time ago for like a hot second.
For like 2 seconds here, I think we discussed it. Well, we got 5 new ones. We've got Rebecca Henderson, who's the wife of the showrunner. We've got Daphne Keane, Jodie Turner-Smith. Dean Charles Chapman is going to be in this.
That was unexpected.
Tommen Baratheon is going to be in this. And then finally, the most exciting one for me personally, which is Carrie Ann motherfucking Moss.
Unexpected, but amazing choice.
Amazing choice. The energy of this cast, my God.
Yeah, I'm like really scared that this might end up being my favorite Star Wars thing ever because it looks so good. I'm like, and we don't even know anything. Like, oh, it's amazing.
We have one behind the scenes shot of it looks like Amandla and Lee and Leslie Headland. But that's it. We've got the cast list and we've got a plot summary.
And what is that plot summary, Charles?
A former Padawan reunites with her Jedi Master to investigate a series of crimes, but the forces they confront are more sinister than they ever anticipated.
So I love that this is going to be a dark thriller. Like, I am so pumped.
This looks so good. Like, first of all, the High Republic is a fantastic period because it really lets you go absolutely apeshit with the Jedi. I love that the main character, and I assume that this is who Amanda Stenberg is playing. And I assume that Lee Jung-jae is the master. But I love that it's like a former Padawan. It's not a current Padawan.
Yeah.
It's like an ex-Padawan who teams up with her old master.
Like, they don't seem like they're that old. So I'm confused at the timeline. Like, how long ago were they the master and the student?
Yeah, that's maybe not even that long ago. It's possible that assuming it's Amanda's character, the Padawan like dropped out like very, very recently. Like maybe she was almost done with her Padawan training. I don't know. There's so much we don't know at this point.
And just based on the way that the picture is set up, because I can only compare it to the Kenobi cast picture that we had last time. It has to make sense that Amandla is obviously the top billing and then Lee Jung is the master. I mean, it just makes sense, like just based on what I think, which does that mean Manny Jacinto is the villain?
I was about to say, is Manny Jacinto playing playing Darth Plagueis. If they hide that beautiful man behind an alien, I will be fucking pissed. I will be livid.
Either way, I mean, it's an amazing cast. They all look great, and I'm very excited to see where this goes and more information revealed as we continue through this process.
I'm excited for Carrie-Anne Moss to join the ranks of Star Wars women that I want to step on me. Like, not even sexually, just in general, I want to step on me. We are a mature podcast by adults.
Speaking of adult podcast, some other news came out.
Yes,
recently.
Literally today, as we record this, which Lucasfilm, I don't know whether or not it was your partners in this that made this decision, but the fuck are you announcing something literally the day before it comes out? But we found out earlier today that apparently a Studio Ghibli Baby Yoda short is going to drop on Disney Plus. Like, at the time this episode comes out, the short will have aired, but we're recording it the day before it comes out.
And because I'm on Hawaii time, I'm literally going to watch this short right after we're done recording. Like, I'll basically have like to wait for it to come out for like another, hour or so, and I'll be able to watch it.
Yeah.
Because it'll come out midnight your time, right? Theoretically.
Yeah, and I'll be fucking asleep.
Yeah, and I won't. This will be the first time I get to watch something before Charles.
Bradley gets to yeah, because I think the closest you've come is the latest episode of Andor, or 2 episodes of Andor ago. You watched it at the same time I did. I'm so happy for you on this journey. I'm glad you found the one good thing about Hawaii.
Is that I get to watch, by the way, the short is called Zen, Grogu, and Dust Bunnies. So this is going to be really adorable, and it's all hand drawn, and I'm very excited to watch this it's going to be so good.
Yeah, no, I'm ready. I think after Andor, I need a little calm, something calm and meditative.
Well, what's so interesting about this too is this leads me to believe that because of this partnership that they clearly have already done, that they are now going to theoretically be open to doing one of their Visions episodes with Studio Ghibli.
Please, oh my god,
that would be so good.
Oh my god, that would be so fucking good. Alrighty, so quickly I will do my Mon Mothma minute here. Mostly just about her earrings. Like, the whole outfit is incredible, but for some reason when I was rewatching, I hyper fixated on the earrings because they're this kind of gold sweeping design that's way more ornate than I would have expected from Mon, but looking at it just makes complete sense because the whole Chandrillan aesthetic is elegance through simplicity. And looking at these earrings, I was like, these are much larger earrings than I would expect, but they just look so good and they radiate this serenity and elegance, like everything that the Chandrillans do. Also, the outfit, absolutely phenomenal, and the way she just commands the room that she's in, it's so good. She's fantastic. She's a mood, and I want to be her when I grow up, except maybe less liberal.
And you will, Charles.
All right, well, we've wasted enough time on other things that are not Andor. Bradley, you want to go ahead and take us into the episode?
Sure. So this week we're going to be talking about Andor episode 10, titled One Way Out. A rare opportunity opens, and the time for Cassian and his fellow inmates to act is now. Charles, what is one thing you liked about this episode and one thing you did not?
One thing I liked was everything, and one thing I did not like was nothing. 10 out of 10, no
Classic.
No, I love that once again, we've had 2 episodes of build-up, and these were 2 very dark episodes of build-up. And so the cathartic release of this episode felt very strong. This episode essentially was nothing but cathartic release, at least on the Andor side of things. And so it was just so rewarding to watch this prison break occur. One thing I didn't like, I sort of struggle with this because, again, it's nearly a perfect episode. They're just absolutely knocking it out of the park here. I did think it was a little distracting to keep cutting away. I thought maybe we should have spent a little more time with the prison. Like, if I was going to make any change at all, like, which I don't want to, but if you put a blaster to my head and said, make a change to this episode, little more prison escape, little less other stuff that's happening that's clearly supposed to set up the finale. But that's, I mean, that's the one thing I can barely vaguely find that I maybe would change. Bradley, what about you? One thing you liked and one thing you did not?
One thing I liked about this episode was that I actually agree with you. I think like if you could have kept the prison stuff together, I think it would have worked really well. Honestly, you could have just put the prison kind of just in the middle and just said like that was the middle of the episode, and then just do the other stuff at the either the end or the beginning, and bookend it. But I really like Andy Serkis's acting in this episode. I know that's such a
Oh
like
my
a
God.
like a lame thing to just be like, oh yeah, I like his acting.
Oh
Because
my God, that man's so good.
I feel like Star Wars has no business being like this good. And honestly, like if this show does not get Star Wars an Emmy for anything other than like sound design or like costumes or whatever or special effects, like and it like I feel like this show, at least if you had to submit like an episode or something, like Andy Serkis is acting in these 3 episodes, any one of these episodes you could submit for an Emmy nom, and I'd be like, yeah, he's gonna win for best supporting because so good, so good.
Here's the thing, right? I love me some Rings of Power. I love me some House of the Dragon. You know I love me my Messy Dragon show. They're fighting like UFC fighting for these Emmys. Andor is out here fighting like 3 a.m. Denny's parking lot fighting. Andor does not care if you live or die. It is all in for everything. The Emmys this year are gonna be brutal.
No, for sure. But one thing I didn't really like about the episode, I mean, honestly, this is such a like a little again a nitpicky thing, and it is the sidelining of the Deidre and Cyril scenes. You know what I mean? Like, they're kind of like not
Yeah,
really
Cyril
present,
wasn't in this at all, and it's such a
right?
short episode that you
I
could
mean,
have slotted him in somewhere.
I see why he wasn't in it because clearly, the last episode showed us, he's kind of getting unhinged. And I guess they're just setting that up for the final two, right? Like he's going to complete his arc in the next two. Deidre, on the other hand, on this episode felt really weird. Like it's like she was in it for like 2.5 seconds to just, give us exposition and then left. Like, and then doesn't explain what she does afterwards. Like, so, I mean, I get that they were setting up other storyline of our other side character later on we'll talk about. But it just seemed weird that she was like randomly for 2 seconds in it and then never seen again.
Yeah, it felt like this episode was sort of torn between wanting to end the prison arc for Cassian and set up the finale for everyone else so we could dive right into it, which in retrospect is kind of what it was doing for all the side characters who weren't Cassian.
At the Narkina 5 prison, the medic removes Olaf's corpse from the prison floor. Later, Cassian tells Kino they must escape tomorrow before Olaf is replaced. Kino is skeptical of Andor's plan, and later at the barracks, Kino confirms Andor's story and tells the other prisoners that they are not releasing anyone.
So it's interesting. First of all, I really, really love the choice that like Kino still hadn't 100% made up his mind after the last episode, that he had to be convinced, go now. Loved that. But I also think that we're seeing something interesting with Cassian here, because Cassian, I'm going to have a hot take. Cassian Andor is not really a leader necessarily.
Right.
Cassian Andor is a support. And what we're seeing here is Cassian leaning into that, supporting someone else who is in a better position to get the revolution that he wants. And we'll see he'll do it again. That Jen Ursa is going to be the one who takes the lead, and Cassian's going to be the one who rallies people to support her in Rogue One. So I think it's interesting that we're seeing that here, and also later in the episode we'll see it.
Yeah, I think what they're doing here in this prison episode, and I think the whole reason why we got these prison episodes was really just to see on a small scale how Cassian does this, like lead a revolution essentially. And you're right, what we're seeing is he's not the leader, he is the right hand man, or he is going to end up being the catalyst of whatever the rebellion is. It doesn't have to necessarily be the leader of the rebellion, because what we see is that clearly Luthen is that character, or is trying to be that character, and then he's trying to get his spark of the rebellion, which is Cassian.
Yes, absolutely. And there'll be a direct comparison between Kino Boy and Luthen Rail later on. I'll get to specifically. But yeah, I think that it would have been easy to focus on a character who's sort of this revolutionary leader in the way that Kino is, or we see Mon Mothma will eventually become by the time of the original trilogy. They're not. They're focusing on somebody who helps revolutions start. The prisoners lead their own revolution. Cassian just helps get that ball rolling. And this conversation that he has with Kino really underscores that theme of these episodes. Because I think Cassian also recognizes too that he's starting to recognize that he needs other people, that he can't do things by himself. Like in the first few episodes we saw, he was constantly trying to do things by himself. And then sort of he saw through Aldhani the power of people working together, because they wouldn't have made it out of Aldhani if they hadn't, worked together. God, those first 3 episodes feel like a lifetime ago.
Forever ago. And that's because we're on episode 10, because theoretically, we've only ever gotten 6 to 8 episodes of a Star Wars show. So like we really
Except
have
when
not...
we were doing Bad Batch.
Right. So
Bad Batch felt like 2 lifetimes.
Right, exactly.
And we're going to do that shit again in January.
I know. And so it's weird being in this one world for so long, because we genuinely have not had this time. And what's funny is, if you would have asked me before we started doing Andor, like if I prefer the Mandalorian method of 8 episodes, or if I prefer the Cassian method or Andor episodes of 12, I think HBO is the one that kind of popularized, I guess, the 10 episode, section of show or for a season. I don't know. I fluctuate between 10 and 12, because sometimes you need those final 2 to really wrap up stuff. And Andor is proving that like you can do the solid 10, and that's a great thing, but then you need those 2 last ones to really give us a finale.
Sometimes it helps to have some extra padding on your episode there, where you can maybe set things up or explain why characters are acting a certain way. Not going to call out any Game of Thrones specifically, but I will say there were certain shows that maybe could have benefited from a few extra episodes to explain why the hell your characters are doing what they're doing. I also just want to highlight once again, especially in the sequence where Kino's listening to everyone speak, and he's weighing all the decisions in his head, and it's all coming down on him. And Andy Serkis is acting. Sir, you are in this show with Diego Luna, Stellan Skarsgård, Genevieve O'Reilly, Forrest motherfucking Whitaker, and you are going to be the standout acting performance of this entire show. In a show where every single actor has been hitting home run after home run, you showed up and hit a home run directly into the scoreboard and punched through it. Hats off to your goddamn acting, sir, because that was fucking flawless.
At the ISB, Deidre receives news that the Krieger rebels have taken the bait of the dead pilot. Supervisor Lonnie convinces Major Partagaz that Imperial forces should not wait, but should make their presence felt.
So we do get a brief mention, and we actually got it in the last episode of Kafrene. I didn't mention that last time because it kind of slipped me by. Some of these episodes have so much shit in it that I miss things. The Ring of Kafrene is the planet where we first meet, not the planet, but the space station thing where we first meet Cassian in Rogue One.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Yep, that's Kafrene. So I know we've sort of gone back and forth on do we want to talk about Lonnie, but he's important enough in this episode. I can't remember genuinely whether or not we talked about Lonnie's actor previously, but
we'll talk about him.
Again.
We're gonna do it again.
Fuck it, we're gonna do it again.
He's important.
He's important, and we can't remember, so fuck it. Who's playing Lonnie? Supervisor Lonnie Jiang.
Lonnie is played by Robert Ems. He has previously been on shows like His Dark Materials and Chernobyl, which you're a fan of.
Yep. Please go watch Chernobyl. It's an incredible, incredible show. It's only 5 episodes, I think. I'm looking through his credits, and he's not been in a whole lot else, but those are the big two. Also, for Claire out there, he was also in Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom.
I was
He was
there you
Tech
go.
Merc.
There you go. I want to talk about this character, even though, I mean, even if we weren't gonna bring him up, it's funny because you did say last week, you teased us because I want to, okay, I'm gonna preface this with this episode, we both made predictions that came true, and we both were correct. So
Yep.
we're gonna talk about yours right now, which was Supervisor Lonnie. You were like, I don't know if I trust this ginger, and you were
Because
correct
you can't
because
trust a ginger.
can't trust a
Look,
ginger.
you look as far back as my dating history, and it will tell you you can't trust a ginger. Also, you can't trust men.
Right.
That does also seem to be a running theme of my dating history.
And I want to point out too, like they don't explicitly say he's suspicious in this scene, but there is a moment where he's awkwardly looking at Partagaz like, huh, he's believing like the things I'm saying almost. And it's like
Well,
it's a weird look.
it's also so weird because he's like really quiet the entire rest of the time. He's really quiet. He's really not good at his job, and then suddenly he pulls this shit out. Like, what the fuck, man? That was immediately suspicious to me.
And I think there's a second where Deidre looks at him weird, like,
Yeah, Deidre's like so confused by this. She's like, what in the hell?
yeah, she's like, where did this come from all of a sudden that you're like so interested and ready to go? And like, I don't know. She's too smart for everybody else. Because I think she might be a little suspicious of him now. Like, if not, I feel like yeah, that's gonna go bad for him later on, but we'll see.
Well, we're going to find out later in the episode how badly these things are going to go for him. I also need to mention in this scene that Partagaz's coat is slick as fuck.
I was gonna say, why does Partagaz have to bust in the room in his Burberry coat, like come in here, like fashionista? He is looking like he's like the ISB has some fabulous coats, and I fucking dig it. I love it's very imperial chic. He works the room when he comes in. It's a very nice trench coat.
I do believe we see that coat on Deidre in one of the trailers, I think. Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe
I
I
think you're
believe it
right.
is on
I think when
Deidre
she's
in one
on
of the trailers. For a second I thought it might be Rogue One. Like we saw it in Rogue One, but then I was like, no, no, Krennic is just wearing like
just a cape, yeah.
another version of his normal robe thing, like his normal uniform. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't know
Oh,
where the
okay, okay.
fuck my brain is tonight.
Back in the Narkina prison, the following day, Kino convinces them that they should escape. The prisoners report to their shifts as usual. On Ferrex, a lady informs a doctor that Marva has not been taking her meds. The group are being watched by Cinta, who is in turn being watched by an ISB agent.
Yeah. So I want to point out something specific about this scene, and that is that Cassian does not appear to have slept.
So it seems like he's been like awake all night, like either A planning or B just couldn't sleep because of the plan.
Yeah, just couldn't sleep. And I think that's interesting because he was able to sleep on Aldani, and he like remember his conversation with Nimik, and Nimik is like, how do you sleep during this? Yeah, it's interesting that Cassian didn't sleep in this situation.
Interesting that, yeah, he's kind of like on the other side of this quote unquote rebellion, right? Or this little act of rebellion, because before he had no investment in it, essentially, other than being
It
paid.
was just a job. Now his
Right.
life's on the line.
Now his life's on the
Now
line.
he
He's
can't
nervous.
sleep.
Right.
Once again, I feel the need to point out here, going into the other prison scenes. Again, I need to point out there are a lot of cast members in these scenes. People like Rasak Kukoyi. I do apologize for mispronouncing that name. Tom Reed, Joseph Davies. These are all people we don't have time to cover because we don't have a lot of time on the show. But go to IMDb. Brian Bovel is another guy who's playing Jembach. Just go to IMDb and look these people up. We don't have time to cover them all in the show, but it is worth looking at all of the people in the prison arc. I just needed to point that out, that we're not trying to diminish somebody by not covering them. We're trying to avoid running through IMDb lists all of the time. Although speaking of running through IMDb lists, I do want to talk about who's playing Dr. Molmoy, not because this is an interesting like IMDb thing, but because this is actually a pretty cool cameo. Do you have written down who's playing Dr. Molmoy, the doctor that's brought in for Marva?
I don't actually.
So Dr. Molmoy is played by Matt Dunkley, according to IMDb. Matt Dunkley has only 2 acting credits. This in 2022 and something called Stan and Ollie in 2018, where he plays a conductor. The reason he plays a conductor is because Matt Dunkley has 226 music department credits.
Oh, wow.
This man is an extremely prolific composer, and some of those credits, sorry, I need to correct myself. This man is an extremely prolific conductor, not composer. He is the conductor of the orchestra. So, you know, when they record soundtracks for films, this is the guy who's conducting the orchestra. And one of those credits is as the conductor for Andor. So when you hear Nicholas Britell's banger fucking score, Matt Dunkley is the guy who is composing, or he's not composing it, conducting it.
Conducting it. Okay, cool.
He has also conducted, good Lord, let me go through some of these. Top Gun Maverick, Succession, WandaVision for the theme song, Wonder Woman 1984, his Dark Materials. There's just so much here. Yeah, that's who this is. So I thought it was 100% worth mentioning this little cameo here.
Do you have anything about Cinta and the ISB agent in particular? Because
only that the ISB agent is there.
Yeah, because I didn't quite catch that.
I didn't notice.
Yeah, I didn't catch it until I did my note.
Twitter had to point that out to me.
Okay, see, I only noticed, well, that's not true. I noticed in the episode that they were holding on a quote unquote, I thought an extra for a little too long. And I didn't think anything of it. Like, oh, I was like, they just kind of stayed on this guy too long. And then I realized going back that he is an ISB agent that has showed up multiple times. So I just thought that was funny that like he's been now following Cinta, which is not good.
Yeah, I had exactly the same thought because somebody was like, oh, it's that guy that was in the background. This show is so absurdly tight in terms of like how every shot, every line of dialogue potentially means something. Nothing is wasted here. Nothing is wasted. Not a single thing. It's incredible. So yeah, it's this one guy who was in the episode where Deidre was interrogating Cyril.
Mothma and Tay Kolma meet with Chandrilan banker Davo Skolden. They discuss Mothma's efforts to secure alternative funding arrangements for her foundation. He offers to help her, but only in exchange for introducing his 14-year-old son to Mothma's 13-year-old daughter. Mothma expresses her disapproval of the Chandrilan tradition of child betrothals and claims she won't accept his offer. Elsewhere, Clea informs Luthen that she found a message that someone wants to arrange a meeting.
You want to tell us who's playing Davo Skolden before we jump into this scene?
Yeah, absolutely. So Davo Skolden is played by Richard Delaney. I think that's how you say his last name. Or it's Delane. I can't.
Delane, I think. Richard Delane. If it's
Richard
pronounced
Delane.
the same way as the guy who played Stannis Baratheon, it's Delane.
Delane. Okay. He's been in The Crown, a popular theme in this show, and The Dark Knight. He was in that. I thought was fun.
He was also in 2 episodes of Doctor Who.
Oh, of course, there's another Doctor Who connection. This show, there's a lot of incestuous shows here on this show.
Because they're casting a lot of British people.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I do also want to shout out who was in the movie Argo. That movie rules. If you like Andor and you have not watched Argo, go watch Argo. It's based on the true story of how some guy faked a film shoot in order to get some people that were hiding in the Canadian ambassador's house in Iran during the Iran hostage crisis out. It's absolutely wild. Go watch that movie.
All right. Good recommendation.
Anyway, so Bradley, you liked House of the Dragon, right?
I did.
You did? Were you surprised to see Andor picking up where House of the Dragon left off in terms of weird, fucked up marriage arrangement?
I wasn't going to put child marriage on my 2022 Andor bingo card. However, I don't know what America's obsession is with not only siblings getting married, cousins getting married, and now children getting married. I really don't know what we're doing here in America. But that all aside, this is amazing scene work because first of all, I didn't realize the Chandrillan custom of child marriages. Like, what the fuck?
Well, it's teenage marriages, but yes,
I
child
mean,
marriages,
yeah,
and like they're betrothing them at age 13 and 14 and they're marrying them when
right.
they're late teenagers, and I'm like, what in the fuck is this?
But we said, remember, we said, like it was 2 or 3 episodes ago, we said, what if, her daughter is at that age and they put it right in
I,
our lap? They were just like, there you
Jesus,
go.
Jesus. Andor is not subtle about where it's going.
Oh, absolutely not. And I love this plot point too, because it brings it back to the whole parent thing. Like we were talking about, like why they're together, if they're, that maybe they fell out of love or whatever the situation is. But now it's like, wait a minute, they also had an arranged marriage as teenagers? Like what?
And it's like basically it's brought all of the disparate parts of Mon's story together, right? Because essentially what she is being asked to do, she is being asked to sell her daughter in order to get the funding needed for the rebellion, which is an immensely fucked up situation to put her in. My
And
God.
I mean, and also like now going back and watching A New Hope, you have to think now, like, Mon Mothma sold her daughter so that this moment could
Well, we don't know
happen.
if she did it.
Well,
She's
that's true.
opposed to it.
You're right. We don't. She's opposed to it, but we don't know if she went through with it. But
We
we
don't
know
know if she's
the.
actually going to try to go through with it,
Yeah.
because
So
that's the
who knows?
brilliance of the writing. You don't know.
You don't know.
What I love about this scene is the fact that there's so much. It's three people sitting on a couch talking, but it's about the interplays of power. That Davos Skulden has the power in this scene by all accounts. He has what Mon and Tay need. They are really in no position to refuse anything that he want, and Mon is still digging her heels in, trying to retain what power she has over the situation. And it's a back and forth between them, while she's also trying not to lie. She's trying not to give away what they're actually doing. There's a lot of intense interplay here, and especially where the way that Davo maneuvers Mon into this by bringing up the Chandrillan customs and the fact that Mon is kind of trapped in her role as the Chandrillan senator, as the representative for Chandrilla, to where it's masterful the way he works this situation, because he basically like is constantly reinforcing the traditions and how important the traditions are, and then he's like, oh, by the way, that one tradition we have about the child betrothals, let's talk about that one because I want to get my kid married to a senator's daughter.
And if you look at it at face value, he's really technically not asking for a lot because he's clearly doing shady things with the money, right? And that's whatever.
Right.
But that's putting him in a position of like, danger. And he's asking is that they be introduced to each other. He's not even asking for the actual proposal or anything. He's literally asking.
That's the insidiousness of it, because that's how it starts.
Right,
and
of
Mon
course.
can recognize how it starts, and Mon wants to break the cycle, but as it is pointed out to her by Davos Skulden, she is not in a position to live a non-conforming life. Like, this scene is so good.
And what's funny too is I don't want to like predict how much they're going to go into this plot yet because I don't know necessarily how much they're going to give value to this, but I could foresee a plot where they do have to do the introduction. So let's say she does go at least to that point of the deal and then, have the daughter actually like the other kid and then possibly be like, that's what turns her even more against Mon, where she's like, oh, you can't see him, or like make it so that she can't be with him. And then she's like, what, I love him, kind of bullshit. Like I see that happening, like this young love thing.
Oh, this could go so many ways.
So many ways. It's so
This could
good.
go
Like
so
they
many
gave us so many
ways.
options and it's so great. And honestly, the acting of just Mon alone, like just her face, like just all the time, she just is trying to hold it in and it's just like she can't.
The
Like,
way she
oh, it's so good.
snaps at the end and he's like, oh, that's the first untrue thing you've said.
Yep, I love
Like,
it.
oh. And she's also, too, she's up against a villain who can play her game, who knows what she's about, because she's been so good at this so far, but he has her maneuvered into a corner where it's a question of don't get the money for the rebellion. It's a choice between herself and her daughter, what she's going to choose. And she can, we don't know what she's going to do. It's so anxiety inducing. I need next week to come quickly. It's mentioned that the emperor did his banking regulations without consulting the Senate, which is yet another reminder that the Senate has no real power at all. There was a fun Easter egg in Luthen's gallery when Clea went in to talk to him. Did you catch it? Did you catch what he was cleaning?
Oh, yes. He was cleaning Padme's, I don't know if you call it her travel crown or what, whatever
Yeah,
it
like
is.
her headdress
Her
thing?
headpiece.
Her
Yeah.
crown thing?
Yeah. It's just
Yep.
from the Attack of the Clones. And it's the piece that she wears when her and Anakin are traveling back to Naboo or whatever.
Did you just know that off the top of your head?
Yes, actually, I did.
Okay, please remind the audience what your favorite Star Wars movie is.
Probably Solo, a Star Wars story. No, just kidding. No, I genuinely like Attack of the Clones. I think it's a fun film, if art film, that some people enjoy because when they were children, that movie came out, and that's why they like it. Also because they love the three monsters in the Coliseum scene, and they had the one toy as a kid, and they were obsessed with the cat monster that they didn't know the name of at the time.
And then later in college, eventually one of the things that will lead them to actually start becoming friendly with their eventual co-host was the realization that both of them owned this exact same toy. Yeah,
That's
this is
more Goldsquadrongays history for you.
There's some Goldsquadrongays history, yes. No, that's the little Padme Easter egg in there, which is fun.
Back at the prison, Andor and his fellow prisoners put their escape plan into action. Andor cuts a pipe in the refresher, causing a leak. Two other prisoners stage a fight to distract the guards, and due to the water leak, the electric floors short circuit. The prisoners begin to riot and escape. Cassian and Kino are able to make their way to the control room and take over the intercom. They inspire the rest of the prison to climb, and Loy does not escape because he can't swim.
So I highlighted the specific line, don't die until you put up a fight, just because I love that line so much, and also will speak so highly to where Cassian is going as a character. I just want to mention that before I dive into my first serious note about the prison break, which is, guess what they didn't do, Bradley?
What's that?
Do you know why this works?
Because they didn't show us the plan before
they didn't tell us the plan
before
they did it. They showed us hints of Cassian and the other inmate putting together the plan, but they never explained the plan to us. We never knew exactly what the plan was. We only knew that the plan was to grab them as they were dropping the new prisoner off. So that is why this succeeds, because they were wise enough, the prisoners were wise enough not to tell the audience their escape plan before they did it.
Thank God, because otherwise this would have been a really sad episode if they had tried to escape and then they didn't.
Oh my God. This show is dark, but not that dark. Speaking of things that are dark, God, So when this episode aired, there were people in the Divas Discord literally tagging me like, oh my God, Bradley was right about them using the water to create an electrical malfunction. And I was like, God damn it, I am going to have to look at that smug fucking twink's face when he realizes he clocked it. Do you want to talk about the thing that you got right this episode, Bradley?
I would love to talk about the thing that I got right this episode.
So you predicted that they were attempting to cut open the pipe in order to create an electrical malfunction. I will give you were correct.
And theoretically, I was kind of half right? Like, so I
it
said
was split into two. You had said the malfunction was going to be the distraction. The malfunction is happening at the same time as the distraction.
Right. So it kind of was a dual distraction because I think later on we see that the guards are kind of freaking out because there's a floor malfunction and they're freaking out, but they're like, wait, there's also people fighting, like we have to deal with that, you know. So it was kind of a multi-faceted plan. But yes, it was a very classic tropes of distracting the guards so that you can actually escape and put your plan into action. So
I fucking hate two things about this situation. I hate that Bradley was right, and I hate that other people let me know that Bradley was right. Just reinforcing for me personally to have to live with the fact that Bradley was right.
And so now we're introducing a new segment into the show called Bradley Was Right. And that is your first one of the season. Hopefully we'll have many more to come.
Things Bradley was right about.
Right.
See, it's the contrast to the thing Charles fucked up.
There's two sides to every coin. There's always the light and the dark. Always two there are. There you go.
Geez.
That's
A
I'm
light
trying to
side
connect
and
it.
a dark side.
There you go.
We get the reinforcement, of course, of climb, the word climb, which is a central theme.
Well, I was gonna say this is now the third character, right, to say it, or in the total.
In the total, yes.
Show,
if you
right.
count K2.
If you count
yes.
K2, right. Which is interesting because I'm finding this climb thing because it's like, okay, so now moving forward, if anybody else says climb, they're either A, gonna die, and B, a super influential person in Cassian's life. So it's gonna be like, so far we've seen two people, one that introduces the idea of rebellion and why the Empire is bad, essentially a manifesto of sort, and then your second character who is inspiring him to escape and lead. And and then of course we know about K2SO in later on. And I'm interested to see if like they'll do another character that theoretically says climb before we get to the introduction of K2SO in the
we'll almost certainly get one in the finale. I hope, because it gets me right in my soul every time it happens.
Well, and I'm thinking it might be Luthen because we don't know what happens to him.
No. Fuck off. Cassian just starts straight murdering people.
Oh, of course, yeah. In classic Cassian form.
In classic Cassian fashion, Cassian does two things. He lies and he shoots people, which we support. Absolutely 100% support what they're doing here. I do also want to point out, did you notice the colors of the uniforms that the laborers are wearing?
No, not really.
It's white and orange. The orange in particular is reminiscent of the Rebellion flight suits.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because they're orange and white.
So when they have the blasters and they're running around, it's kind of a visual like reference to the rebels.
I see. And they're in the sterile white kind of, brooms, and it kind of makes sense because
it makes the orange pop out too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. So they run in at one point, and they take over the main area of the place. And there's the warden, the intake warden, who we already talked about. But do we want to talk about Apostle, the other guy in the room who's playing Apostle?
Sure.
So Apostle is being played by James Cooney. Doesn't have a lot of credits, but he's mostly looks like does Royal Shakespeare Company stuff. Like that's what he does.
Okay.
So that's who's our one scene wonder here, playing the more cooperative of the prisoners. I do want to bring up the use of negative space in this episode, because this is a very suspenseful episode. And part of it's an episode that's not afraid to be quiet. There are these pauses, particularly these long pauses in this scene where Kino's like leaning over the A New Hope style communicator, and like there's nothing there. Is such a great suspense builder.
And I love, like I said, Cassian has to be the catalyst and kind of force Kino to like go for it, like just do it. Like they're only going to listen to you, they're not going to listen to me, because they trust you, because you have established dominance, you've established yourself as the quote unquote leader of the prison, and so you have to be the one to inspire them. I can't do that. I'm just the person who's trying to get everyone out, and the only way I can do that is through you. So I need you to kind of go for it. he does hesitate.
Cassian recognizes that you don't have to be a leader to start a revolution. But part of starting a revolution is finding leaders and inspiring them to lead their people. And that's something that we see him doing for Kino in this scene, which is just awesome. Just an awesome scene. Andy Serkis, your voice alone in this scene, which with the echo does kind of sound like Snoke. I can't really unhear that.
I
But
mean, what are you gonna do?
what are you gonna do? It's not the fault of Andor. It's the outside knowledge of me knowing what Snoke sounds like.
And let's just be thankful that in an alternate universe, there was a Marvel style cutscene at the end of this where the prison blows up and then Kino Loy's face gets all fucked up and he he realizes he's force sensitive or some bullshit. And then there you go. That's Snoke's backstory.
On the one hand, Andor has been very careful. There was actually an interview with Tony Gilroy earlier this week where he was talking about how they were very careful. They were really using the story group as a resource to inspire them. So they would go and ask, what canonically do we know about X? And then they would build off of that, which is how we got the Mon Mothma story. Is they went to them and they were like, what do we know about Mon Mothma? Not a whole lot about her family. So on the one hand, it was absolutely awesome that they used the story group much of the same way the Obi-Wan Kenobi show did. Used it to its full potential to really make it exciting. And I wish that other shows would have also used the story group for that same thing. However, I do think Andor retconning the Snoke origin story would have been extremely fucking funny.
It would have been funny in a sense, but
I
then
would have
also,
hated it.
oh yeah,
It's funny in the abstract. I would have hated it if it would have actually happened.
right. And we've talked about too that possibly, Bad Batch may or may not be delving slightly into that storyline. We're not quite sure yet. Once that kind of starts coming through, we'll talk about it.
Mandalorian and
two,
Bad
but
Batch are both doing weird
yeah,
things.
kind of weird stuff. So we'll see if that Snoke stuff comes back to bite
Andor
us.
has
But
no patience for that. Andor just wants to do fucking banger Kino
Right.
Loy speeches that make me tear up every time I listen to it. I also think it's important that Kino reinforces the notion of solidarity when he talks about make sure everybody gets out. You see someone that's lost or struggling, you help. Because that's also an important thing is in this microcosm of revolution that you want to make sure that people who are fighting alongside you are getting support from you, that you're focused to the people on either side of you and behind you as much as you are on what's in front of you. So I thought that was a really cool element of the speech. I also love that the guards just hid. Like I was expecting them to burst out and do an ambush.
They're not getting paid enough. They're like,
no, they
this.
just hide like cowards. All right, let's address the Kino Loy can't swim.
Arguably one of the saddest things in the world, because what this lets us know is that the whole entire time he knew this. He knew that they were surrounded by water. He knew that he couldn't swim. He knew that there was never a chance for him to escape. And he still went through with this whole thing in the end because that's just.
I will now read a quote to you.
Okay.
And I will not tell you where this quote is from.
Okay.
I burn my life for a sunrise I'll never see.
Is it going to be either Snoke or
it's this episode?
you know who it is. Yeah.
No, this is the parallel between Kino and Luthen, because Luthen, the whole point of him, and we'll get to that scene in a minute, is that he made a calculation to get the galaxy out of fascism 15 years ago. And he's trying to see that through, but he knows he will never get to see that freedom.
Right.
He's fighting for someone else. He's not going to make it that long. Kino Loy is a microcosm of that. Kino Loy had to lead and inspire and pull together the prisoners, but he was never going to make it out. He was doing it for himself, and I think his shock at realizing just how far he would have had to swim was genuine. I think he thought he would have been able to get out. I don't think he realized that swimming was part of the equation. But once he gets up there and he realizes, oh, I did all this and I will never be able to benefit from it, which is the tragedy of Kino Loy's story in these 3 episodes. It just hurts, man. It just hurts. Finally, I would be remiss to point out that, yes, the prisons do look like the little Imperial symbol. Fuck you, my one friend who has barely watched a Star Wars before this, went to Rise of Skywalker and hated it. That has been his experience with Star Wars, is loving Andor, and texted me that. And I went, God damn it. How did you catch this and I didn't?
Oh, really? Because I thought this was like really reminiscent of the Senate floor and
I
from.
completely missed that these things were
Oh yeah, they're
like the
doing
Imperial
heavy.
cogs.
Oh
And my
yeah,
friend had to
heavy.
point it out to me, and I'm like, you don't even know what a Han Solo is. Sit there and tell me, point out these small details in Andor's. Fuck you. Fuck you. I'm so mad.
On Coruscant, a disguised Supervisor Jung walks through the lower levels of Coruscant. He meets up with Luthen and reveals that he has been working secretly against the Empire to help Luthen. Jung says that he can't continue being a double agent because he has a daughter now. Luthen tells him that he must continue being a hero for the rebellion. Back on Narkina 5, Andor and Melshi escape together under the cover of night.
Luthen looks so evil in his scene.
I
Like
think that's
he's
definitely intended. Like
it's
he's supposed to be
deliberate.
yeah, he's supposed to be
Because
very intimidating.
the door opens and he's like got this sweeping black cloak behind him, and he's standing ominously on this catwalk, which I mean makes sense because essentially in the scene he's half threatening, half bullying Lonnie into remaining with them when Lonnie's trying to back out. Now it's suddenly the rebellion's become real for him, but my God, Luthen looks like a villain here.
Well, and he's essentially doing like the character or whatever, what he's doing in this scene is essentially being like, hey, yeah, being a rebel is fucking hard. And honestly, we're gonna do whatever we can to win too. So you better get in line, otherwise we're gonna destroy you, like kind of thing is like what he's saying.
And then Luthen proceeds to give the speech that changes lives. Like I was watching this once again. My boyfriend and I did actually get to watch this together. Dead silence in the room when this speech was going on. There was nothing. This is masterful writing by Beau Willimon, masterful delivery by Stellan Skarsgård. It's just my God, man. Just it may be the ultimate scene where I have no notes because it's that good.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than like that's why when I simplified
That
my notes, it was literally like I don't know what to say. It's just a great monologue. He gives you a great example of like what, he says he's like, "What have you sacrificed?" Like, "I've sacrificed everything." That's basically what he said. I mean,
and if he
that's
just said I sacrificed everything, that would be like, okay, we feel bad for you, man. But
right.
no, he gives this fucking banger monologue about how like I made an equation 15 years ago. I'll burn for a sunset I'll never get to see. I'm doomed to use the tools of my enemy against them. And I'm like, what the fuck, man?
So good.
Beau,
So good.
Beau, you did not need to pop off this hard.
Which, like I said, if you're gonna submit an episode for an Emmy, Disney,
This one,
this is the
one,
episode to submit. I
this
think you
one.
need to submit
Submit
this
this
one.
episode. Good
Because
God.
it's got everything in it,
For this, even for this speech by itself, like good Lord. And then yeah, we do see Melshi and Cassian like running. We can kind of see like searchlights on the beach behind them, so it's sort of implied that they're the only two that managed to get out, which is sad, but somebody got out.
Right. And, we don't know how big this planet is or like what the beach is like or what the environment's like. So maybe there's other ones hiding around, but maybe it's just a deserted planet. And so there's not really anywhere to go. So it might not be
Well,
like a
clearly they
great place
both
to
get off of
escape.
it because we see them later on.
True. That's true. But like for all we know, the planet is not inhabited. So we don't know how they escape for all we know. I mean, maybe there's a town that they get to in the next episode and we'll see them escape. And then that's how we start, that journey.
I'm
But
sure we'll
who knows?
figure it out.
I'm sure we will.
Hey, Bradley, you want to hear something amazing before we enter our final thoughts?
Sure.
I think if you subtract the Acolyte, we just did an Andor episode where the length of our coverage on the Andor episode was the length of the episode itself.
I should, when I'm editing, I should just like play the episode just timeline. I can just see how long exactly the episode is and just see like if it's the exact same time.
Well, it helps that we weren't introducing a bunch of new people. It helps that this was mainly just the culmination, and I'll segue into my final thoughts. This was mainly just the culmination of the really dark prison arc, and it was incredible. Like it was great as a finale for this, and it's really got me pumped like going into these last two episodes. Like, what's gonna happen next? We don't know. But I personally am very, very excited to see how this all comes to a head. And I'm very excited to see how this leads into the second season, forming the end of the first chapter in the 3-chapter story of Cassian Andor that'll finish out with Rogue One. What about you, Bradley? Final thoughts?
Yeah, so I like this episode a lot. I think you're right. I think this is the best arc so far. At least it's the most entertaining, and it's, to me, I love the darkness. I think that's great. I think this show has proven that we need more adult Star Wars, is what I'm gonna call it. Not that regular Star Wars is bad by any means. It's just a different experience and a different thing that you want to watch at a different time. And this arc alone proves that, and the show proves that mature Star Wars is doable, and it's successful if it's well written, and it has amazing actors like the ones that we have in this episode.
Before this show, I would not have agreed with you. But after this show, I agree with you 100%. It shouldn't be the norm, but it's absolutely doable to tackle more mature stories in this universe, which is awesome. And not just put fucking zombies in it. That's not what adult shit means, Star Wars. I haven't forgotten about Death Troopers, and until the day I die, neither will any of you. All right. Before we close out the show, another friendly reminder from me to the audience that if you are not listening to For Light and Dice, the High Republic era TTRPG actual play podcast that I am on, you should be doing that. It's really good. And yes, that is it. So Bradley, we will be back next week for part 1 of the Andor finale, and then we're doing Tales of the Jedi, right?
That's correct.
I feel like our audience has gotten a little bored with us being like pleased with things.
Yeah, I think so. So maybe
maybe something will come up here shortly that at least one of us was very not pleased with. So stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned for your, I guess we'll call it Christmas present, because it's gonna be all in December.
Listen. Complaining about a thing that I didn't really like is my Christmas gift to me. Amazing. My other Christmas gift to me is you run the socials so I can get out of here.
Thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gays. Did Charles fuck something up? Send us a message at goldsquadrongays@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at Gold Squad Gays. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Gold Squadron Gays. Subscribe to us on YouTube at Gold Squadron Gays, where we post the podcast as well as exclusive content. Please join us next week and every week for more of Gold Squadron Gays.
That was the most in sync bathroom break I've ever seen in my life.
Good timing. We literally sat down at the exact same time. So that
stood up at the same time, sat down at the same time. That was incredible. And I stopped to talk to the cat.